Active, locked and loaded. The sun is charging up. Yes, it's late. I was about to make dinner after a very long day. Did so much today. And then I saw the X-class flare. And so now we are live streaming because that's what I do when there's something of importance to talk about. That's my mission, that's my goal, that's my promise I've made to people, so we're going to do that. Okay, we got some people in the live stream. So let's talk about the sun. Let me get my view up so I can see what's happening. Okay. And so we just had a 1.25 X-class flare from Sunspot group 13738. And we'll see it here at the very end of the video, right there. And then there was also a follow-up M-class flare. But basically, we've had a continuous sequence now of flares, each getting stronger than the last, culminating just a couple hours ago with this 1.25 X-class flare, kind of coming out of nowhere. And I just made a video earlier today discussing the M-class flare that we had, which was the most powerful flare that we've had in more than 2 weeks. That was a like 5.3 M-class flare. Well, lo and behold, throughout the day, the sun really started to ramp up. And not just here, we also are getting activity now from this sunspot group, which is quite significant because it's very broad in duration and it's been growing very rapidly. So this is one to watch. We're going to look at the magnetograms. We're going to look at the sunspot intensity grams. We're just going to go through all the solar parameters and then we'll do a Q&A. It's not going to be the longest live stream. But in general, just want to get you up to date with what's happening with the sun if you are behind the ball. We'll look at what solar cycle 25 has been doing thus far. We are in maximum. We'll look at that data. And so this is that 1.25 X-class flare, the first X-class flare in a while. So something to be excited for if you like to see solar activity and you like to see the Earth receiving more solar consciousness. Now, if you're really feeling the effects of these flares, especially if you're on that daylight side, that's the part of the Earth that receives those X-ray photons in 8.3 minutes, then I'd highly recommend you do something like grounding, earthing, go outside, connect to the neutral potential of the Earth, connect to a larger biofield like that produced by a tree. You could drink just water, right? Just clean spring water. You can reduce your food consumption, lower your inflammation. Things like turmeric, curcumin are very good. Black pepper with piperine is a very good anti-inflammatory. Even things like CBD, aloe vera. There's a whole bunch of natural anti-inflammatories that you could utilize if you're feeling inflamed and just your energy systems are heightened and not in a good way by these flares. Personally, I generally feel a boost in my metabolism. I feel good, but I'm also young and healthy, and I kind of have my cycles established with these rhythms because I'm earthing all the time. I just went for a swim in the Pacific Ocean. So if you can get into the ocean, that is the best thing you can do. Okay, so let's now look at this ramp up in the X-ray flux, and then we'll come back to this for some more eye candy. I see you all in the chat. If you have a question, type at Stefan Burns so it shows up nicely, or else I'm probably not going to see it. So please, give me some grace, but if you want a question answered, type at Stefan Burns, and let's try to keep them on track to what's happening with the sun. Okay, I know you all have a lot of questions; they're very interesting, but let's keep them on track with the sun as best we can. So we are going to go to our X-ray flux right here, and we'll go full screen on this. So here is our X-ray flux for the past 3 days, and I mean it's kind of have to step off screen so you see all of it, but you see in general just in the past about 24 hours this ramp up, right? Really clear, beautiful ramp up of solar activity culminating with that 1.25 X-class flare. So X-class flares are back on the menu. This is the flare that I talked about in my earlier video. I'd highly recommend you go watch that if you haven't seen it already, because it discusses some of the archetypal energies resonating in the background right now. We just came off of a Venus-Pluto opposition, and that's also occurring during a Sedna, Pluto, Black Moon, Lilith trine. So that's definitely active in all this right now. We have Mars coming up to a conjunction with Uranus and the fixed star of Algol, which deals with the head. And if you saw the news, there was some sort of thing happening at a Trump rally. I don't know if it's a false flag or whether it's a real thing, but that, he had blood all over his ear. So there's a lot of heightened energies right now. And now the sun is just like, yo, let's ramp it up, which is what the sun does. So hi, Troy, see you in there. When's the max for this flare? Yeah, so specifically, we can zoom in. Thanks for that question. It's at 2:34 a.m. UTC time. So you can convert that to your local time zone. This is universal time on the 14th. Now here, Pacific time, it's 10:11 p.m. So it occurred just a few hours ago, very recently. Now this is our X-ray flux. You can again see how it's been going up, trending up. We had some high M-class flares. If I move this over, here's this first high M-class flare, second one, X-class flare, M-class flare. So just in 24 hours, the entire regime has changed. We've gone from this low period of solar activity to now a high period of solar activity. And so that is likely to continue because we can look at our intensity gram here and see that now there's quite a lot of sunspots on the sun. We have this big group here. This is the group that shot off that flare. And then we also see this triple sunspot group here that formed on its last rotation. Actually became pretty nasty looking, but didn't really do much. It subsided quite a bit from its last rotation, but it's still there. And actually this one's kind of growing again. It has an unusual magnetic field. It's becoming more complex, and there was a large flare that occurred off of that. We'll see a broad duration flare that occurred off of that. If I go back to that data here, just watch over here, and you'll see that long duration flare occur at some point. So we get all the X-class, that X-class flare over here and stuff. But if you watch here, there's also a flare that occurred there. And so these two are kind of working together. There's that first one. There's that long one right there. They're kind of working together in sequence right now. They're the same latitude region of the sun. And so there seems to be connection to their flux. But really, this is the one that all of a sudden woke up. Now, a few videos back, I talked about the magnetic complexity of that sunspot. It's actually become less complex since I made that video. But now, of course, it's flaring. So you can't always just go by what you see. This is what's most important. Is it doing it or is it not doing it? So now it's doing it. But it did have a lot of magnetic field complexity a few days ago, which was kind of signaling that we could have an increase in flares from that region. That's what I basically said, and now we got it. So that's why you should really subscribe if you're not a subscriber. So you stay up to date and you're forewarned of these things. So it's not a last minute, oh my God, what's happening? I don't know much about personal astrology. How much does someone's personal chart matter to the solar system dynamics you talk about? It matters quite a lot because, like, for example, I have a lot of Leo in my chart. So that's why I resonate so much with the sun. I have like 7 different things in Leo. It's ridiculous. I keep finding new ones. But if you are on the opposite side, for example, with Saturn, then that's also going to have this axis connected to the sun. So it's important. But really, it's not the only thing. Astrology is just one method. It's not the only method. A lot of astrologers, it's like their only thing, but it's just one tool in a vast toolbox. Good to use, but not the only thing. Okay, so let's go back here to our intensitygram. This is our sunspot group. We're actually going to zoom over to our latest, not that one. Where is it? Don't tell me I closed it out. No, here we go. To our sunspot and coronal hole diagram. This shows the magnetic fields, the labels, and the different coronal holes. So here's this coronal hole 1231 that opened up and now is closing, emitting a high-speed stream. We also have that impacting the Earth right now. It's not that strong, but we've had a jump in the solar wind velocity and the temperature just in the past 60 minutes as measured at the L1 Lagrange point. So it's actually hitting Earth right now. The solar wind strength doesn't seem to have changed much. It has gone up a little bit, but we'll see how that affects Earth's magnetic field, whether that takes the KP index up into the 5 territory or above. But this is our main sunspot group here, 13738, and here are the others And we also see two sunspots there that are rotating in as well. So it's not going to end when these guys kind of rotate out. We have a whole sequence now. As you can see, the entire solar disk is full of sunspots or active magnetic flux, like with this coronal hole. We can look specifically at our magnetogram to look at that magnetic field. And you see this broad region of negative polarity. Here's the positive polarity. You can see that its complexity is mainly in the fact that it's sandwiched between the two. A little bit of mixing up here, but it doesn't have the deep inner bedding that it did earlier. Now there is some right here. We do see some of this magnetic field mixing, polarity mixing, which makes the field more unstable. But in general, it's just become larger. It's just become more eruptive. If we zoom over to our other friend here, which let off a flare too, as we looked at, we see that it's actually become quite complex and the magnetic fields have become quite strong. So here's a very broad region of enhanced negative polarity, some big strong pockets of positive polarity, and they're all kind of mixing together, especially like right here. You can really see that mixing nicely. And in there, it's almost like a battlefield, like different flanks and fronts being opened up and pushing into each other. We see this negative polarity like really pushing into this positive zone there. So I would expect this to flare more, especially once as it's moving through the strike zone. I could definitely see this flaring more anywhere in this region, and as it rotates through that strike zone off onto the western limb. So we're not done as it relates to the sun and flares with just this sunspot group. We also have this big region of flux here, and that could evolve very quickly. As we've seen, the sun, at times it pushes flux out and you get a sunspot group that forms really rapidly and grows very complex very quickly. So you can't rule that out. We also have, if we look at our 3 or 4 angstrom view, we will see on the 12th there was a plasma filament that launched. Thank you, God bless. We see this plasma filament that will launch here from the southeastern limb, and NASA did a model on that. It does not show an impact. There it goes, just like this. And then right after that, we have this plasma filament here, which kind of just diffuses out. There's no real clear launch of that, but it diffuses. We do see some pretty strong outbursts from these flares that have occurred. But if we look at the Coronagraph, we don't see any active CMEs. So let's look at the Coronagraph to give that a look. First though, let's look at this NASA model. Here's the NASA model. So we see that plasma filament getting launched over here, and that did not impact, it's not going to impact the Earth, which is there in yellow. So that's according to NASA, and NOAA has not made an updated space weather model. They still showed us ambient conditions, but with this sequence of flares, that may change. The thing is though, is that we're not seeing that in our Coronagraph. If we go to our Coronagraph view and we zoom in on this guy. Thank you, KBs, for the $2. Appreciate it. I'm here to help everyone. I'm here to do this even late hours. This video will live on afterwards, but I wanted to make this when I saw the data come in, when I saw that we were under this extreme sequence of flares. Higher vibrations. How will this likely interact with the Mars-Uranus conjunction on Monday? Well, I think it's enhancing all that because this solar energy comes in and it takes time to filter down into the biosphere. Because first it's at the sun, right? These photons, if you're just talking about a solar flare, we have light photons that are emitted. 8.3 minutes later, they hit the Earth, but they hit the ionosphere. These are X-ray photons, so they don't make it past the ionosphere. Extreme ultraviolet light gets a little deeper into the atmosphere, but both of them get absorbed into the atmosphere at a high level. And so that energy creates more charge, stronger electric currents, which then flow around the globe, and those induce currents in Earth's crust, which then we interact with biologically, alters weather systems, things of that nature. The stronger the flare, the more potential you have for enhanced weather activity and for these telluric currents and a change in the global electric circuit. So it takes some time. And so if we continue to have flaring all the way through Sunday and Monday, then I expect that conjunction between Mars and Uranus and algal to be even more intense. I mean, we're already seeing some pretty intense activity, maybe a false flag, in terms of the United States and the politics and this Trump shooting, whatever, that could very well be a false flag. Let's be real. But in general, there's also an understanding that the people in power and the elites, they study this stuff the same as we do or more. So this is all timed as well. And so, but the sun is not timed. You can't control the sun. So these people or these events, you can't anticipate what the sun is going to do. We do know we're at solar maximum. In general, there's an increase in the consciousness during solar maximum. But going beyond that, you can't anticipate when there's going to be an X flare popping off. If you go to any space weather news site, no one is going to tell you that there was a chance of X-class flares today, but here we are doing the live stream at 10:21 p.m. Seems to be some large flares coming into view as well from Trevor. Yeah, we could see some more headed our way very well because of the sunspot groups we talked about. So here is our coronagraph view, our C3 coronagraph, and you'll notice that this is going all the way, this is the past 24 hours, going all the way to the 14th of July, and pretty much up to what's happening right now, and you won't see any halo CMEs. You don't really see any significant CMEs in the past 24 hours. So according to the coronagraph, we don't have any push of coronal material away from the sun towards us because these sunspots are in the strike zone. So if they did launch a coronal mass ejection, it would very likely impact the Earth and trigger a storm, but we're not seeing that. So keep that in mind. The effects that we're talking about here are going to be the effects from the flares, and at this moment in time, we're not seeing any coronal mass ejections. Though if you look at the 304 angstrom view like we did, there are some kind of punches, even like the 131 angstrom view. If we go back there really quick, if we go back here, just kind of like, here we go. Just kind of watch this. You'll see some like pushes out of these flare regions. See that like push of material? Same there. We'll get another one here. See that? Just some material coming out. So can't rule it out. Can't rule it out. What we do have happening right now is this high-speed stream that's coming in. So let's look that up. Let's look at it. Look it up. Oh, and it looks like density is now coming up too. Okay. So here, and I can zoom in, I guess. I think I can do one more. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And now let's even make this like the past 3 days, past 1 day. This will be easier to see. Yeah, here we go. Okay. I see your question. What is a false flag? It's like a event that is staged and people think it's actually something else, right? Like people think 9/11 was a false flag, that America actually did 9/11. I'm not giving you my opinion on that. Just that could have been a false flag where, America wanted to go into Iraq and all this in Afghanistan, so we set it up to happen. So then we had public support. Okay, here is our real-time solar wind, and you'll just immediately notice this jump up in the density, this jump up in the speed, and this jump in the temperature. That is that high-speed stream coming in from that coronal hole. And so we're not really seeing any big changes to the interplanetary magnetic field. If we go over here, we see that it was about 5 nanotesla, the black line's total field strength. It did go up to 7, but now it's back to like 4. Red line is pretty normal at around 0. So this really isn't that significant of a high-speed stream impact at this moment in time. We'll see if that continues to strengthen, but that has come in as predicted. Now, the other thing I would like to discuss is I would like to just quickly talk about solar cycle 25, and then we can also just look at the solar system and this Mars-Uranus conjunction at the end before taking a couple more questions. So just getting this set up. Okay, can we just talk about the sun? Yeah, well, a lot of things are happening. People have varying interests. So here is our international sunspot number for the last 13 years, and we see solar cycle 25, and if I step over here, we see solar cycle 24. So the first thing that you'll notice is that solar cycle 25 is already at a higher level than 24 ever reached, especially these past 2 months. This is May, and that's June. June Sunspot numbers were slightly lower than May. May is when we had all that crazy activity, that great G5 geomagnetic storm, but June also had a lot of sunspots. And so you see this nice pattern here, this nice W pattern where we reached this high back here in 2023. That was back in like July and August, June, July, August. And then we reached this low, and now we're back up here again, and it seems that July is going to be another high sunspot number month. Probably not as high as May or June, though that could change, but also still elevated and likely to still be higher in terms of total sunspot numbers for the month than all of solar cycle 24 ever reached, because it never broke 150. And so these numbers up here are about 170 or so. And so we are already in a different type of solar cycle as compared to the past 11 years. Each solar cycle is 11 years long. Now solar cycle 23 was average strength, and so far this is still weaker than like 23 was, though there's still quite a bit of time with this solar maximum. So we'll see what happens. This is solar maximum here for 24. This is like the first shoulder, and then it goes down, there's the second shoulder. So you see how long of a time period that is. That's 2012 to 2014, right? Here we're just kind of reaching this zone. So we have at least like a year, more like 18, 24 months left for solar cycle 25 maximum. Are we just about at the maximum for the cycle? Yeah, but maximum is a broad peak. So there isn't just like one single moment that is maximum. That's one of the problems with a lot of these space weather videos by some of these channels that are kind of hyping things up, like NASA Space News. I'm sorry, but they're just bad channel. They just don't have good info. There are a lot of these channels like Solar Max is like the sun's magnetic field is flipping now. It's like, no, it's a slow thing. It happens over like 2-3 years. You know, this flip isn't like an instantaneous process. Solar maximum is like a 3-year period. So yeah, we're in solar maximum, and we will be for a while. And in general, you can see that when you're at solar minimum, sunspot numbers are almost non-existent. Now, what's interesting about solar cycles is that you get more earthquakes during the minimum period. And you also, in general, it seems, based on the limited data that we have, going back to earthquake measurements, it seems that there's more earthquakes that occur when overall solar activity is lower. So if you go back to like 1940, 50, 60, 70, when we had these strong solar cycles, earthquake activity overall was lower. There were some big earthquakes then, of course, but overall it was lower. And then when we reached this low, the minimum period after solar cycle 24 was like a 100-year low. It's the bottom of a Gleisberg cycle. We had a bunch of strong earthquakes during this time period. So that is really important to know, because then as we come out of this, we're likely to see an increase in earthquake activity. So there's a lot of people that track earthquakes now. There's always going to be earthquakes. I made a video about earthquakes just a couple back. But when we descend out of the cycle, after Earth's been loaded up with energy for 5-6 years from the ascending phase and the maximum phase, then we're going to see kind of the Earth respond and push some energy out. That's what the research indicates. And so let's just wrap up. Of course, if you have any questions, before we wrap up, if you have a question, do at Stefan Burns and I'll answer it. Let's wrap up with our solar system view, because we have this nice transit coming in right here. You mentioned solar cycles and earthquakes. Does solar weather affect volcanism at all? The mainstream science answer currently would be it depends, or it's questionable, or no, depending on who you ask. But we know volcanoes are intimately connected to the global electric circuit. When Hunga Tonga erupted in 2022, it created a massive electromagnetic pulse that was measurable in the Schumann resonances, in the background electromagnetic field, the magnetic components of the electric component worldwide. Big bursts of activity in the global electric circuit. That's a volcano. And that wasn't even that big of an explosion of an eruption if we look at the historical record. Thank you, Seeking Truth, for the $10. God bless. Wish you well. So we know that volcanoes are a really active kind of condensed energetic point in the global electric circuit. We know that space weather influences the global electric circuit. In many ways, it's what drives the global electric circuit. So yeah, there's going to be some feedback loops that go into that drive volcanic activity. Just what those are haven't been elucidated yet. That's what I would say. People that are more traditional would argue against that, but we're learning that the Earth is very much electric in how it works. And so, I mean, geology is a slow-moving science. It's also one of the sciences least prone to attack and kind of subterfuge, where people are corrupting things and telling lies. But at the same time, it took a while for example, plate tectonics to be accepted. It required a lot of evidence. And then a lot of people died, and eventually, hey, plate tectonics is the thing, because plate tectonics is pretty well proven. And I expect the same thing to happen with an electric understanding of our Earth, because people see the Earth as moving slow, and it does, but it can move quick at times. Thank you, McClellan. God bless. $10. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Wishing you well. There's also, though, outside of how the sun affects the Earth in geophysical dynamics, there's also even more of a nebulous thing that most scientists won't even touch or acknowledge, is the planetary dynamics at play. And so here we have, this is set for right now, we have Earth, Mars, and Uranus forming this nice alignment in the cosmos. This is going exact July 15th and then also July 16th. You know, Mars takes a couple days to move through that conjunction with Uranus. Uranus is a slower mover. So this is occurring on Monday, it's occurring on Tuesday. Thank you, Higher Vibrations. God bless 555. I love the numbers. That reduces to 6. And so we have this active, and this is at 26 degrees of Taurus via Western Tropical Astrology. You could also just look at the synodic position. We don't even have to talk about a reference frame. We can just see that they're in a line, right? I use Western Tropical Astrology for the archetypal energy understanding of what's occurring. But it's not necessarily necessary to see that there's an energetic alignment here. And Uranus being this planet of radical electric change, Mars being this energy amplifier, you have this come through there, and then you have that, and now the Earth is now being beamed with this archetypal kind of force. And so we have that coming up, and we're already feeling that because it's coming in orb, and we're going to continue feeling that as it exits that orb. And so I'd say the solar activity is already connected to this. It's connected at least in terms of time. It's temporally connected because it's happening at the same time that this is. Coincidentally, I would also say it's connected in terms of the energy signature. An increase in solar activity while this becomes exact makes perfect sense. Crash Burnsley, thank you for the $5. God bless. Wish you well. And so we have this active as well. We are now just coming off of a Venus-Pluto opposition. We can see that right here. And so you can see that the sun's also pretty close to this as well. And so this is now breaking apart, but that is also there. Ceres is kind of swinging in. Ceres has a 4.6 year cycle. And just in general, if we kind of zoom out, we see that most of the energies of the solar system are on one side. And if you go over here, look at that. Nothing. Except for maybe some minor points like Haumea, Maki, dwarf planets in the Kuiper Belt. So there is this gravitational kind of collection on one side of the solar system, and that is something that's going to play out for a while because Jupiter is going to break it first, Jupiter being the fastest mover, 11.88 year revolution, but Saturn eventually will also rotate to the other side with its 29.5 year cycle. But Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus are all in a configuration where they're all sextile each other basically. And so that's going to be active for like all the way through like 2032, and these are really big transformative energies for the collective and society overall. So what we're seeing now is really just a teaser. I'm going to make a video on this upcoming Capricorn full moon because it's really a preview into the future and also of what we've already had occur. This is a really powerful moment we have coming up with the Capricorn full moon. And actually I wanted to quickly show the astrological chart that we have right now, because we do have at this moment in time, we do have the moon exactly quarter moon. So we have a first quarter moon in Libra. Thank you, Gloria, for the $9.99. How high can an X-ray reach that can cause blackout? It really depends on the electric systems, their current capacity, and how well they've been designed. So if there is an electric grid that's like running at capacity because there's this massive heat wave, for example, and then we get an X10, that could overload it. Depends on the geophysics too. Basically what happens is you have this energy come in, whether like through like a CME impact, a geomagnetic storm, and you get these geomagnetically induced currents in conductors, in pipes, in wires. That causes the overall thing to just overload. Like it reaches a transformer and it blows it out, and then that drops and just causes a chain reaction. So you need really strong induced currents to do that. Good example is in the 1859 Carrington event, the currents were so strong it like melted wires, right? It caused telegraph stations to like catch on fire, some exploded. They were able to run their telegraph machines without any power because the geomagnetically induced currents in the wires were strong enough that they were able to send their little voltage signals on top of them. So there's no easy answer for you in terms of, oh yeah, an X5 will cut the power grid, an X10 will. But in general, the stronger it is, the more likely that probability will be. But based on the solar storm that we had back in May, we didn't really have any power grid failures. That was a good test. Things seem to be more resilient than maybe people make them out to be because they have an agenda and they make money off of saying, hey, everything's going to collapse, the world's going to end. Though it is a big concern. It's not to be underappreciated or underestimated, but it's also, we have to be, we do have some good things about us. We have done some hard work. There's a lot of people out there investing their entire lives and their work into, the electricians and the people maintaining the power grid, millions of people. And so we should be honoring and celebrating them for their hard work and dedication. They've done a good job delivering power to our homes every single second. So God bless all those workers. That's what I say. Susan, thank you for the $9.99. Thank you. God bless. Wish you well. So yeah, just right now we're at a quarter moon, and I find quarter moons are really interesting inflection points, and so we saw that today in terms of world events. We see this in terms of solar activity now changing, right? They are moments of change, and so the moon right now is halfway in between its new moon and full moon phase, and it's roughly now square Pluto and square the sun. It's basically what the orb is like 3 degrees or so on each side. So that's what we have active right now. So let's wrap up. If you have any questions, please do at Stefan Burns. And if we don't get any questions that come in, then I'm going to sign off and I'll just wish you well. But I think there's probably a few questions that people have. We'll run through them really quick and then we can all get on and hopefully get some sleep tonight. I still need to eat my dinner. I've barely eaten today. But this is, I've always said that if there's something newsworthy to talk about, we're going to talk about. So that's what we're doing. So please, if you have any questions, at Stefan Burns, live Q&A, and then we will sign off. We'll get our X-ray, our 131 X-ray view back up, our X-flare back up. Okay, here's a question. Do you think that we're going through a collective consciousness shift? I think we are always going through one. I think the consciousness is always changing, always evolving. The question is it going through a bigger shift than normal? And I would say at this moment in time, yes. I would say one of the reasons is because of the internet, quite simply. Before we knew of Pluto, we were tracking Uranus-Neptune cycles. These are 171-year long planetary resonances where Uranus and Neptune meet in the sky. A Neptune-Uranus conjunction occurred back in 1993, which is when the World Wide Web was birthed. CERN released that data out into the public as open source. And so we've been dealing with that ever since. Now I can live stream to you, from my small studio apartment in San Diego, and I can tell you all these things and you can learn so much. I've learned so much by researching on the internet. I didn't get a master's degree because I was like, why go to school and get a subpar education when I can do all the research I need to by myself, because I'm a great analytical mind for this. Of course, there would have been benefits to going to college, but I digress. That That's a 170-year cycle, though, that Uranus-Neptune conjunction, 1993. So that's going to play out for a while. And so the consciousness shift that was triggered by that, also in Capricorn, which is where we're having this full moon, have a lot of conjunctions in Capricorn. If you look at our history, that's going to play out for like another 140 years. So yeah, big shift, but it's not going to occur in 2 weeks, like some people think. Like all of a sudden the Earth is going to just explode and some people are going to ascend in like 2 weeks. I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I can't say yes or no. I think as we've seen, the Earth kind of always survives and things are always evolving. But I think I'll be able to look back at the end of my life, and other people will be able to look back, you know, in years' time, decades, and really see a profound shift in people. That's what I believe. But it's always happening. And as it relates to you, it can be instantaneous. You're not at enlightenment or nirvana until you are. How does solar maximum and Schumann resonances affect Reiki energy? One more question after this, by the way. If you have a question, please do ask Stefan Burns. I'll respond to it. I would say in general that this would... I don't practice Reiki, so take for what I'm saying, you know, put it through a filter. I haven't had Reiki done to me before, at least like with a person there. Some people have done Reiki at a distance. I can't claim I have felt it, though in general I typically feel good and healthy. But if you're working with these energies, I would say when the other environmental energies are enhanced, I would say your ability to perform Reiki should be stronger. Like you should have a greater impact. Because what we're really thinking about with that is not that, oh, there's more energy in the atmosphere. It's more that there's this more kind of potential built into the background fields, the quantum fields. And that's what Reiki is really touching. Reiki is like manipulating the quantum fabric to try to heal someone or trigger some sort of change. And so when those are under greater flux and there's just more potential available in those quantum fields, I would say that Reiki would be more effective. Or there's just at least more ability to manipulate the energy fields with a master practitioner. So last question here from Jay Dow. Are you going to do an interview with Pam Gregory? I just need to reach out to her. She hasn't reached out to me yet. I'm not sure if she even knows who I am. I wouldn't fault her if she doesn't. Though I would hope she watches the channel so she can be up to date on the space weather stuff. But I just once I moved in, I'm going to shoot her a contact through her website. I hope to talk to her because I really like to talk about the astrology and geomagnetic storms and how they're connected. But I'm sure we'd have an interesting conversation. I've talked to David with Quantum Plant Healing, I believe it is. British chap who's really cool. Talks all about Aztec time with his wife, the Zolkin, which is really interesting. We just started a new 260-day Zolkin with just a few days back. And so we are now in a new Mayan calendar, a new cycle there. And now we're seeing how the sun is shifting. He, though, was interacting with Pam Gregory and said it was really easy to get in contact with her and that she was very open and communicative. So we hope that works. I'm excited for that, but there's no agenda and it depends on her. But if you would like to encourage that, then please leave comments on our video saying, hey, check out Stefan Burns. That'd be helpful. And in general, all of you are helpful. If we're doing a live stream, I would like to take a moment to look back at just the past 2 weeks or so. We go back every time. Like from the beginning of this channel, how it's grown has been tremendously impactful in my life. But the past 2 weeks specifically have been incredible in terms of the amount of outpouring and support that everyone has shown me at the base, just in terms of people watching videos, interacting, commenting, liking, driving, community engagement. That's amazing. You know, that's really what we're here for, is to create a community, first and foremost, that's educated and knowledgeable about this stuff and working together coherently and in resonance towards spiritual development and enlightenment. And then there's other people who have also contributed with super thanks and by signing up for one of the different special channel memberships, whether the Soul Tribe or Schumann Superstars. People have sent PayPal donations. Some of them have been blown away, just like the amount of abundance people have shared. I released my Planetary Resonances e-course. You can look at that in the video description. Sign up if you like. Learn about these background energy fields. a good amount of people have signed up for that course, has made my move in to San Diego possible, because I feel very resonant here, but I also needed a down payment, a deposit for my apartment. And I put a lot of work into that course, and I wasn't making YouTube videos as a result. So anyone that bought the course, thank you, God bless. Anyone that super thanks, God bless. PayPal donations, God bless. And that course is still there. It's on demand, 15 hours of video content. Talks about all this. If you want to see me talk for 15 hours on a whole bunch of topics, that's the course for you. You use the code Planetary Resonances for 20% off. But just the amount of synchronicities and just kind of magic that's occurred over the past 2-3 weeks has really been tremendous. Today the card is Ace of Pentacles. I pull one card a day, Ace of Pentacles upright. So I'm just so thankful. I'm just so happy, feeling so good. And we hope we can do that for everybody. And so I hope through my videos, I can broadcast that out to all of you. And so it's not just a me thing, right? It's energy feeds in, the energy goes out, and we create this ever-evolving kind of spiral upwards. That's the goal. And so that's why I jumped on the live stream at like 10 p.m. So again, thank you, God bless. Really, your support means so much, and I'm going to continue to just pour out content, information. I've been doing lots of research on the spin of the magnetic core. I have some other videos that are waiting in the wings. I'm going to release them soon. And so if you'd like to see all that, please subscribe and click notifications so you're notified when things like live streams happen. So yeah, wishing you all well. Have a great Saturday night and an even better Sunday. Much love, and I'll see you all in the next video.